I stood behind the hostess stand of my restaurant, watching people arrive for the grand opening. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The invitation in my apron pocket felt like it was burning a hole through the fabric. I'd sent it to Dad 3 weeks ago. He'd replied with 2 words, "We'll see." But he was here now, walking through the door with his new wife Gretchen and her 2 teenage sons. 4 years since Mom died. 3 years since he'd remarried. 2 years since he'd stopped returning my calls. Please take a moment to support our channel. Hit subscribe and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your support means everything to us. The restaurant was called Nina's Table, named after my grandmother, Dad's mother, who taught me to cook when I was 6 years old. The woman who made me fall in love with food. The woman Dad barely mentioned anymore. Jade. My best friend Rhiannon rushed over, her chef's coat spotted with sauce. "Your father just walked in. Are you okay?" "I'm fine." I wasn't fine. I was 29 years old, $100,000 in debt from culinary school, and about to serve my father food he told me I'd never be good enough to make. Dad spotted me and walked over. Gretchen clung to his arm like she owned him. Her sons trailed behind, already looking bored. "Jade. This is nice." Dad's voice was flat. He glanced around the dining room, the exposed brick walls, the Edison bulbs, the open kitchen where my small team was plating dishes. Smaller than I expected. It seats 42. I'd worked 3 jobs for 2 years to save for the deposit on this space. "Thanks for coming." "Well, we were in the neighborhood." Gretchen smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Dennis wanted to see what his investment bought. My stomach clenched. Investment. Dad's jaw tightened. "Gretchen means the money I spent on your education. Culinary school wasn't cheap. I paid for culinary school myself. With loans. You said you wouldn't help because cooking wasn't a real career. Did I?" He looked at Gretchen like he couldn't quite remember. "Well, either way, here we are. Let's see if it was worth it." They sat at the center table. The one I'd reserved for family. The one with the white tablecloth and fresh flowers. The one where I'd imagined Mom sitting if she'd lived to see this day. I brought them menus. My hands were steadier now. I'd printed these myself last week, staying up until 3 in the morning to get the design perfect. Each dish had a small description. Some had stories. Dad opened his menu and frowned immediately. "These prices are ridiculous. $28 for chicken? It's coq-au-vin. With root vegetables and..." "I know what coq-au-vin is, Jade. I'm saying $28 is highway robbery." Gretchen nodded. "Dennis is right. You'll never make money charging these prices." One of her sons, I think his name was Blake, laughed. "Yeah, who's gonna pay $30 for fancy chicken?" I took a breath. The menu is designed around classic recipes with modern techniques. Everything is made from scratch. We source locally when. Just bring us the food. Dad closed his menu. "We'll try a little of everything. But I'm telling you right now, this better be good." I walked back to the kitchen. My sous chef Dominic looked up from the fish he was plating. "You good, chef?" "I'm perfect." My voice cracked. "Let's show them what we can do." We sent out the first course. Heirloom tomato salad with burrata and basil oil. Simple. Clean. The tomatoes were from a farm 40 minutes away. The burrata was made fresh that morning. I watched from the kitchen as Dad took a bite. Then another. Then he pushed the plate away. "The tomatoes are mealy," he announced loudly. Several nearby tables looked over. "And the cheese tastes off." Gretchen nodded in agreement, though I'd watched her take only one tiny bite. "It's very plain." I expected more from a grand opening. The other diners were staring now. I felt my face burning. Rhiannon put her hand on my shoulder. "Ignore them. The tomatoes are perfect. Everyone else is loving them." She was right. Other tables were finishing their salads, complimenting the servers. But all I could hear was Dad's voice carrying across the room. Second course. Butternut squash soup with sage cream and toasted pumpkin seeds. This recipe had taken me 3 months to perfect. I'd made it 27 times before I was satisfied. Dad tasted it. Made a face. Too sweet. And what's with all these seeds floating in it? Looks messy. Blake laughed again. It tastes like baby food. I gripped the edge of the prep station. Dominic was watching me with concern. Chef, you want me to go talk to them? No. Just keep cooking. Third course. Pan-seared duck breast with cherry gastrique and wild rice. The duck was cooked perfectly, medium rare, crispy skin, tender meat. Dad cut into it, examined it, then shook his head. Undercooked. You're going to make someone sick serving raw meat like this. It's not raw, I said quietly, approaching the table. Duck breast is served medium rare. That's the proper temperature. Don't tell me about proper temperature. I've been eating duck for 40 years. In Chinese restaurants where they cook it well done, I said. This is French preparation. French preparation. He said it like it was a joke. Is that what they taught you in that fancy school? How to waste money on undercooked food? Gretchen put her hand on his arm. Dennis, maybe we should just go. This obviously isn't our kind of place. But Dad wasn't done. He was on a roll now, and he had an audience. Other diners were pretending not to listen while hanging on every word. You know what your problem is, Jade? You always had to do things the hard way. Your mother babied you, told you that you could be whatever you wanted. And look where that got you. 30 years old, running a restaurant that'll be closed in 6 months. I'm 29. 29, 30, what's the difference? You're still living in a fantasy world. He gestured at the dining room. This isn't a career. This is a hobby you're trying to turn into a business. And it's not going to work. Something in me snapped. Get out. Dad blinked. What? Get out of my restaurant. You're not welcome here. Now wait just You came here to humiliate me. You brought your new family so they could watch you tear me down in public. You didn't come to support me. You came to prove I'd fail. My voice was shaking but strong. So get out. The restaurant had gone completely silent. Everyone was watching. Dad stood up slowly. You're making a scene. Good. You wanted a scene. You got one. Now leave. Gretchen grabbed her purse. Blake and his brother were already heading for the door. Dad stared at me for a long moment, his face red. You're just like your mother. Emotional. Irrational. Can't handle criticism. Mom would be proud of me. That's the difference between you and her. She believed in me. Dad walked out without paying. The door slammed behind him. The restaurant was still silent. Then one person started clapping. Then another. Then the whole dining room erupted in applause. I stood there, shaking, tears running down my face. Rhiannon came out of the kitchen and hugged me. That was the most badass thing I've ever seen. But I couldn't stop crying. Because despite everything, despite how cruel he'd been, he was still my father. And his words had hit exactly where he'd aimed them. What if he was right? What if I did fail? After service, I sat alone in the empty dining room. It was past midnight. We'd served 86 dinners. The reviews would come out tomorrow. But all I could think about was Dad's face. The disgust. The certainty that I was going to fail. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Is this Jade Tanaka? A woman's voice. Older. Yes. My name is Francis Lim. I was your grandmother Nina's best friend. I was at your restaurant tonight. I sat up straighter. You knew Grandma Nina? For 53 years. We grew up together in Taipei. Came to America together. She paused. I wanted to call because I recognized something on your menu tonight. The coq au vin. That was Nina's recipe, wasn't it? My heart stopped. How did you know? Because I ate it 100 times at her house. She made it every Sunday. The way she used star anise with the traditional French ingredients, that was her signature. No one else cooked it that way. Francis's voice was warm. She would have been so proud of you tonight, Jade. So proud. My dad said her recipes were lost. After she died, he told me all her recipe cards got thrown out. That's not true. Your father has them. I was there when Nina gave him her recipe box. 2 weeks before she passed. She made him promise to give it to you when you were old enough to appreciate it. I couldn't breathe. He has them. Last I knew, yes. He was supposed to give them to you on your 21st birthday. That's what Nina wanted. I was 31 now. No, 29. Dad had stolen 10 years' worth of my grandmother's legacy from me. There's something else, Francis said. Nina left you money. $50,000. It was supposed to go to you for culinary school or to start a business. Your father was the executor. He was supposed to give it to you when you turned 25. The room was spinning. I never got any money. I was afraid of that. Francis sighed. Your father told me the money was tied up in legal issues. But Nina's will was simple. There shouldn't have been any issues. Where is this money now? I don't know. But I have the lawyer's contact information. The man who drew up Nina's will. His name is Terence Nguyen. He's still practicing. She gave me the phone number. I wrote it down with shaking hands. One more thing, Jade. I have something for you. Nina gave it to me before she died. She said if anything happened to your father, if he ever turned his back on the family or on you, I should make sure you got it. What is it? Her real recipe collection. Not the cards in the box. The notebook where she wrote down everything. Every dish she'd perfected over 60 years. Every secret, every technique, every story. She hid it with me because she was afraid it might get lost. I was crying again. She knew. She knew Dad might not give it to me. Nina was a smart woman. She loved your father, but she knew his weaknesses. After your mother died, she worried he might become someone else. Someone who forgot what mattered. Francis's voice was gentle. She wanted to make sure you had this. Her legacy. Can I bring it to you? Yes. Please. Francis came to the restaurant the next afternoon. She was 76 years old, tiny and elegant, with silver hair and kind eyes. She carried a cloth bag. Inside was a spiral notebook. The cover was stained with grease and wine. The pages were filled with handwriting in Chinese and English, sometimes mixed together in the same sentence. Drawings of techniques. Notes about timing and temperature. Stories about where dishes came from. This is everything, Francis said. Nina spent her whole life collecting these. Some are from her mother. Some from her grandmother. Some she created herself. I turned the pages carefully. Here was the coq au vin recipe, written in Grandma's handwriting with notes in the margins, Dennis's favorite. Make this when he's sad. Here was a beef noodle soup. Jade loved this at age 6. She ate 3 bowls. Every page was a piece of my family. A piece of myself. Thank you, I whispered. Francis smiled. Your grandmother would have loved this place. The food, yes. But more than that, the heart you put into it. That's what she cared about. That's what made her cooking special. After Francis left, I called Terence Nguyen, the lawyer. His assistant put me through immediately. Miss Tanaka. I've been hoping you'd call. His voice was serious. I'm the attorney who handled your grandmother's estate. We need to talk. About the $50,000? Among other things. Can you come to my office tomorrow? I met with Terence Nguyen the next morning. His office was in a high-rise downtown, all glass and polished wood. He pulled out a thick file. Your grandmother Nina Lim Tanaka died 7 years ago. She left a will dividing her assets. $50,000 was designated specifically for you, to be given when you turned 25. You're now 29. You should have received this money 4 years ago. My father never mentioned it. I sent multiple letters to your father's address. He was the executor. He signed for them. He acknowledged receipt. Terence pulled out copies of the letters, all with my father's signature. I also sent letters to your last known address, but they came back undeliverable. I moved a lot. I was working different jobs, trying to save money. Your father knew how to reach you, though, correct? Yes. Terence's expression was grim. Miss Tanaka, I believe your father misappropriated your inheritance. That's a serious crime. It's also a breach of his fiduciary duty as executor. Can I get the money back? We can try. But first we need to determine what happened to it. Do you have any knowledge of large purchases your father made around 4 years ago? I thought about it. 4 years ago was right after Dad married Gretchen. They bought a house. A big one in the suburbs. Do you know what he paid for it? No. But it's worth at least $400,000. Terence made a note. We'll need to investigate. If he used your inheritance as a down payment without your knowledge or consent, that's embezzlement. You could potentially put a lien on the property. I don't want his house. I just want what Grandma left me. I understand. But recovering the money might mean taking legal action. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the restaurant. About the debt I was carrying. About how $50,000 4 years ago would have changed everything. I could have opened this place sooner. Could have had better equipment. Could have avoided some of the crushing loans. Yes, I said. I'm prepared. Terence filed a petition with the probate court. The process was slow. Weeks turned into months. Meanwhile, the restaurant was thriving. Reviews came out, all positive. A hidden gem, one said. Elevated comfort food with soul, said another. Chef Jade Tanaka is a talent to watch. We're booked solid 3 weeks out. I hired 2 more line cooks. Started planning a Sunday brunch menu. But the success felt hollow because of what I'd learned. Dad had stolen from me. Had lied to me. Had kept Grandma's recipes locked away for nearly a decade. Then I got a call from Dad's lawyer. My father wanted to settle out of court. He'd pay back the $50,000 plus interest if I dropped the case and signed a non-disclosure agreement. I met with Terence Nguyen. What do you think? It's a decent offer financially. The interest brings it to about $63,000. But the NDA means you can't tell anyone about this. Not friends, not other family members. And your father admits no wrongdoing. What happens if I don't take it? We go to trial. It could take years. It'll cost money in legal fees. You'll have to testify. Your father will likely claim he used the money for your benefit somehow, or that you gave permission. It'll get ugly. I looked at Grandma's recipe notebook sitting on Terence's desk. I'd brought it with me everywhere since Francis gave it to me. I want to go to trial, I said. Because this isn't just about money. It's about what he took from me. 10 years of Grandma's recipes. 10 years of her stories. He stole my heritage. My history. And I want that on record. Terence nodded slowly. Okay. Then we fight. The trial took 18 months to wind through the court system. During that time, Nina's Table became one of the most talked about restaurants in the city. I opened for lunch. Added a private dining room. Started doing cooking classes on Monday nights. I used Grandma's recipes to create seasonal menus. Each dish had a story printed on the menu. This beef noodle soup was my grandmother's specialty. She learned it from her mother in Taiwan in 1952. People loved it. They loved knowing where the food came from. They loved the connection to history, to family, to tradition. Dad's trial finally came. The courtroom was small and sterile. Dad sat with his lawyer and Gretchen. He didn't look at me. The evidence was damning. Bank records showed Dad deposited the $50,000 into his account 1 week after he received it from the estate. 2 months later, he made a down payment on his house for exactly $50,000. His lawyer argued that Dad had intended to give me the money eventually, that he'd invested it for me, that the house was partially for my benefit since I'd always be welcome there. When was the last time Miss Tanaka was invited to your client's home? Terence asked during cross-examination. The lawyer hesitated. I don't have that information. I do. Miss Tanaka hasn't been to her father's house in 3 years. She wasn't invited to Thanksgiving. Wasn't invited to Christmas. Wasn't invited to family dinners. So how exactly is a house she's not welcome in for her benefit? Dad's lawyer had no answer. Then Terence called me to the stand. Miss Tanaka, did your father ever tell you about the $50,000 your grandmother left you? No. Did he ever give you any money from your grandmother's estate? No. Did he tell you that your grandmother's recipes were lost? Yes. He said they'd been thrown away after she died. But that wasn't true, was it? No. He had them the whole time. Terence pulled out photos of the recipe box. Frances Lim had found it in Dad's garage during a visit. She'd taken pictures before he realized what she was doing. This box contains your grandmother's recipe cards. Your father told you they were lost. But they were in his possession all along. Why do you think he kept them from you? I looked at Dad. He was staring at the table. Because if I had them, I'd know she believed in me. I'd know she wanted me to cook. And he couldn't stand that. He wanted me to fail so he could be right about cooking not being a real career. Objection, Dad's lawyer said. Speculation. I'll allow it, the judge said. This is family court. The witness can speak to her understanding of family dynamics. Terence continued. Miss Tanaka, how did your father's theft of your inheritance impact your life? I spent 6 years working 3 jobs to save money for culinary school and the restaurant. I went into debt. I struggled. I had to delay my dreams. My voice was steady. But worse than the money was not having my grandmother's recipes. I recreated them from memory. I spent years trying to figure out her techniques. I thought I'd lost that connection to her forever. And all that time, my father had it locked away. Why do you think he did that? Because he was angry. At my mother for dying. At me for reminding him of her. At my grandmother for supporting my dreams when he wouldn't. I looked at Dad. He was finally looking back at me. He wanted to erase the past. But you can't erase love. You can't erase legacy. And you can't steal someone's heritage without consequences. The judge ruled in my favor. Dad was ordered to pay back the $50,000 plus interest. Plus punitive damages of another $25,000 for breach of fiduciary duty. Plus my legal fees. He was also ordered to return all of my grandmother's possessions, including the recipe box, within 30 days. But the money wasn't the victory. The victory was standing in that courtroom and reclaiming what was mine. My history. My family. My truth. Dad didn't speak to me after the trial. Gretchen filed for divorce 6 months later. Apparently, she'd married him for his money, and now he had significantly less of it. The recipe box arrived by courier. No note. Just the box wrapped in brown paper. I opened it in the restaurant after hours. Rhiannon and Dominic sat with me. Inside were hundreds of index cards covered in Grandma's handwriting. Some were yellowed with age. Some had food stains. All of them were precious. Here was her char siu recipe. Her egg tart recipe. Her jiaozi recipe. Recipes I'd tried to recreate from childhood memories. Now I had the real versions. We should do a special menu, Rhiannon said. Grandma Nina's greatest hits. I laughed through tears. Yeah, we should. We did a 10-course tasting menu featuring Grandma's recipes. We called it Heritage. Every dish came with a printed card telling the story of where it came from. The night we launched it, the restaurant was packed. Frances Lim was there. She brought 3 other women, all friends of Grandma's from Taiwan. They were in their 70s and 80s, and they cried over the beef noodle soup. It tastes exactly like Nina's, one of them said. Like we're young again, sitting in her kitchen. That was the moment I knew I'd won. Not in court. Here. In this dining room. Keeping Grandma's memory alive. Sharing her love through food. 1 year after the trial, I got a letter from Dad. He'd written it by hand. Jade, I've been in therapy trying to understand why I did what I did. The therapist says I was grieving your mother and took it out on you. She says I resented that you reminded me of her. That I punished you for her death even though it wasn't your fault. I know I can't undo what I did. I stole from you. I lied to you. I tried to kill your dreams because I was drowning in my own failures and misery. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. And I'm proud of you. The restaurant is beautiful. The food is beautiful. You did what I never could. You took Mom's love and Grandma's talent and made something that matters. I understand if you never want to see me again. But if you ever do, I'll be here. Dad. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd be ready to talk to him. But not today. Today, I had a restaurant to run. A legacy to honor. A life to live. 2 years after opening, Nina's Table got a James Beard nomination. Best New Restaurant. I didn't win, but being nominated was enough. The ceremony was in New York. Rhiannon and Dominic came with me. We got drunk on champagne and laughed until we cried. On the flight home, I looked at photos on my phone. The restaurant on opening night. The heritage menu launch. The James Beard ceremony. Me standing on stage in a chef's coat, smiling. And I thought about Grandma Nina. How she'd loved food not because it was fancy or impressive, but because it brought people together. Because it told stories. Because it was an act of love. I was 31 now. The restaurant was thriving. My debt was manageable. I'd bought a small house with a garden where I grew herbs and vegetables. I was happy. Really happy. Not because I'd beaten Dad in court or proved him wrong. But because I'd found my purpose. My place in the world. Some nights after service, I'd sit alone in the dark restaurant and imagine Grandma there. Sitting at that center table. Tasting my food. Smiling. Did I do it right, Grandma? I'd whisper. And somehow, I always knew the answer. Yes. Yes, you did. Because the thing about legacy, it's not just recipes and techniques. It's love passed down through generations. It's showing up even when people tell you not to. It's believing in something bigger than yourself. Dad had tried to take that from me. He'd locked away the recipes and stolen the money. But he couldn't take away what mattered most. The memories. The lessons. The love. That was mine. It had always been mine. And I'd turned it into something beautiful. I thought about Dad sometimes. Wondered if he ever drove by the restaurant. If he ever read the reviews. If he ever regretted what he'd done. But mostly, I didn't think about him at all. Because I was too busy cooking. Too busy creating. Too busy living the life Grandma Nina had dreamed for me. Last month, a young woman came to the restaurant. She was maybe 22, nervous, holding a culinary school portfolio. Chef Tanaka. I'm sorry to bother you. I'm a student at the institute. I wondered if you might look at my work. Maybe give me some advice. I looked at her eager face. Remembered being that young. That hopeful. That scared. Come back Thursday, I said. We're closed for lunch. I'll show you around the kitchen. We can talk. Her face lit up. Really? Thank you so much. My parents think cooking is a waste of time, but I know, I said gently. I know exactly what that's like. Come Thursday. We'll figure it out together. Because that's what Grandma would have done. She would have seen someone who needed help and offered it. She would have passed on the knowledge. Kept the legacy alive. And that's what I do now. Every day. Every dish. Every person who walks through those doors. I'm not just running a restaurant. I'm keeping a promise. To Grandma. To myself. To everyone who's ever been told they're not good enough. We are good enough. We're more than good enough. We're everything. I stood in my kitchen last night, my kitchen, and looked at Grandma's notebook open on the prep station. The pages were more stained now. More worn. Because I use it every day. And I smiled. This one's for you, Grandma, I whispered. Then I got back to work. Because there were people to feed. Stories to tell. Love to share. And that's what it's all about. That's what it's always been about. Home.